I want you to know who I am. And so I'm going to share a few things with you that I don't usually talk about. Parts of my identity, some experiences that I have learned from that influence my choices and my actions. I imagine I have this table in front of me and I have a bunch of cards. And any cards that are currently on the table, I feel like they are my values and my experiences that I can access anytime I'm talking to someone in a conversation. But I feel like there's a bunch of cards that I've excluded from this table. And I really want to enter all my future conversations with my whole identity. All of who I am, my experiences, all of them being things I can access and use to inform my responses. So, what I'm going to do is look through this pile of cards that is currently excluded from the table. And some of the ones that are really important to me, I'm going to place them on the table. That's what I'm going to do right now. I had a whole journaling session about this, and it felt so good to just be like, this is who I am. Not all of who I am. Obviously, no one can explain all of who they are within a brief span of time, or even at all. No one can explain all of who they are. But here are some things about me that are important to me. Here's a card that I'm placing on the table. I am not straight, in that I've had a girlfriend. And I am not straight in that I hope to have a partner one day, but I don't care what they look like. I don't care if they're going to be male, female, trans. I trust that when I love someone or am in love with someone, I will know. And whoever they are is whatever it will be. So that is one card on the table that I do believe that everyone should be allowed to love whoever they want. Well, age-wise, right? Let's keep things into consideration. Let's keep important things in consideration. But I hope you get what I mean. Another card I'm placing on the table is that I listen to energy forecasts the way other people listen to weather. I believe in astrology. I think that some people take it to way an extreme that is completely unhealthy, and some people use it in order to inspire fear, which I completely am against. However, I really do believe that where the planets are in the sky, where the moon is, impacts us. It impacts our emotions. It impacts, our physical state of being. I believe this, and part of this, from my perspective, is scientific. It's not woo-woo as much as it sounds woo-woo, because of vibration and just particles and waves and energy. No need to explain too much right now, but the card that's on the table now is that I believe in astrology. And I believe that physical and emotional symptoms can happen as a result of some of the energetic shifts that we experience, and genuinely dealing with some of these energetic shifts on a weekly basis can be difficult and sometimes exhausting. Here's another card that we're placing on the table. I think that there's so many people and so much media trying to spread fear. Like, did you know that fear and creativity use the same parts of our brain? And, if we are engaging in one, we can't engage in the other. So if we're feeling fear, we can't be creative. But the opposite is also true. If we're feeling creative, we can't be in a state of anxiety and fear. And, the more fear the media succeeds in inspiring, the more control they have over all of us individually and as a collective. And I think it is work to recognize when something is trying to instill fear in you purposely, and to choose not to let it, to choose anger, to choose creativity. I think that the more people are in fear, the less they can access creativity and inspire change and transformation. And I don't think it's by accident that so much media in the world is trying to inspire fear. I really don't. And it's not an accident, following that previous line of thought, that, many of us, especially people in the United States, have forgotten connection. Connection in all three capacities of connection to ourselves, connection to others, and connection to nature. Another card on the table. I have traveled so much. I have seen and experienced and learned so much, and I have so much to say. I don't always know who to say it to, but I have so much to say. And the reason I'm saying some of it now is just because it benefits me to be as real in me as I can be in this world. I forget how many people haven't traveled as much as I have. I forget that people haven't seen the same things that I have. That some people have never left a city. That some people have never spent 10 days in the middle of nowhere, or in the middle of nature in a forest with no service or Wi-Fi or towns. I have done that, and I know what that feels like. And I know what connection to nature feels like. And I know what a sky full of stars looks like, and a river without any towns around looks like, without any rafting companies. I know what that looks like, and I forget some people don't. I forget that people don't all know that humans and nature aren't separate. It's really hard for me to conceptualize even how many people have been persuaded into believing that is the case. And that people have been persuaded nature is out to get you, so it's safer in a city than in nature, which is really, really funny of a concept. I forget that not everyone knows that math and science and art aren't separate. I feel like I've been thinking about this and exploring this for years, that it just feels obvious that everyone else has caught on by now that, art and math is the same thing. Math is art. Science is art. The point of having categories of science people or art people is we're all working in the realm of creativity and curiosity. And that stuff feels amazing to humans. And yeah, I forget that it's not obvious sometimes. Another card on the table. Community. I think we need it, but I think we live in a world where it's a fight to find community. And, for those of us that don't just want to identify with one particular club and interest, that want for a community, not to be built upon a particular commonality, it's even harder to find, right? Just on the choice that everyone there looks out for each other and cares about each other and puts up with each other, for whoever we are. Have you ever seen the Moomins show? Everyone in that show, every character is different. And, one character loves money too much, and one character is a complete brat, and one character is so innocent and sweet to the point of, oh my gosh, a little too much. And, one character just wanders around and always like the whole world and comes back and doesn't like staying in one place. Like all of them have something that is their thing, but they're not asked to change their personality. They're still loved as who they are. They're still all friends. And yeah, they argue, but the arguments never break the trust that is that they're still friends. And so it's the best show I have ever seen in my entire life. It's like a community that I wish existed for more people in the world is one where you're not scared to have a different opinion, because having a different opinion won't mean the end of friendship. It won't mean the end of love or anything. A trust that runs deeper than opinions and deeper than even common interests. So, yeah. Another card on the table is, nature is alive, and we don't talk about that enough. Like, I can feel when I'm in an environment if the plants, if the trees are happy, if they feel respected and taken care of by humans. And part of the reason I can feel this is because I've been to so many different places and felt the difference. Because I have seen more than one environment. Like, I have been to Hawaii, to Oahu, and let me tell you, the way the Hawaiian people respect their land and nature and the environment is so beautiful, so true and enlivening, so respectful. Anytime you want to do work on the land, like even sustainability work to help take care of a park or protected area, the Hawaiian people, they will say a prayer, sing a song to ask the land, may we please work on you? May we please do this to take care of you? They ask the land for permission before doing any work. And you can feel it. I don't know if you can feel it. I can feel it. Like, I can feel how loved the land in Hawaii feels, at least in those places, in those parks where those people, make that ask. It's kind of like a way of honoring the land. And when you honor the land, this is our environment, this is our home. I heard this quote the other day that was kind of like, someone asked, why do you care about the environment? And another person answered, it's my home, I live in it. Like, it impacts me. Like, what do you mean, right? But it's so simple of an answer, but we care about the environment because it is our home. Nature is our home. There's lots of cities, and cities are great, and sometimes making materialistic things more sustainable is helpful, but sometimes not making them in the first place is even more helpful. I don't know where I fall on the scale of how much I'm willing to leave a city, because I have before. I've lived in the middle of the forest before for a couple months, and it was glorious. And I've lived on an island with, a few people, not that many people. I've lived there before for a couple months. When I was younger, my grandparents would take me to the middle of the wilderness in Russia, and we would camp out for like 10 days with nothing, as in like technology or phones. We would have to cook food on a fire. We would brush our teeth in the river. We would build a sauna to shower in the river too. It was all something so close to nature. And this honoring of the land, of the plants, of the animals, I think is something we can all benefit to learn from. And I think we can talk to nature, and I think we should. To talk to the trees, they can hear, and sometimes you can feel them respond. I have a couple of trees in the world that are really dear to me, more than the others. And they have really, really special places in my heart. And I feel one of them is almost like a guardian to me, a protector in a way. Someone who really supported me. A tree. Yes, a tree. I have a really good relationship with that tree. And some others that have just inspired me so much. So, yeah. Another card on the table, along the lines of nature, is to talk to the souls and the spirits within any given space. You know, not just to talk to trees, but when you enter a room to say hello to the spirits that are there. This is something I learned from Japan, and also from the Studio Ghibli movies, which were animated in Japan by the amazing, amazing animator Hayao Miyazaki. Studio Ghibli movies are real pure magic, and some of them are really everyday magic, not just dramatic and like poof, you know, just like everyday magic. And I think these movies can make a big difference in the world if more of us watch them. But going off of that is like the Japanese really do believe that when you enter any space, there are souls and spirits there, and they like when you say hi to them. And so I do that, or I try to at least. Sometimes when I walk into a space, I say hello to the spirits. And, you know, when I leave, I ask them to watch the house sometimes. And then when I leave one location and go to a new one, I like to ask the spirits from the current location where I'm at to be like, hey, you know, we're friends, we had a good time. Can you please tell the spirits in the new place that I'm going to be coming, and can you please let them know who I am, so you know they're prepared and they like me, and can you ask them, you know, to be friendly and to protect me. And it feels really nice. All of this feels like, you know, you're not ever unsupported in the world, like the spirits and the trees. And not obviously, but I don't walk around every single day thinking about this all the time. It's not completely part of my routine or my being as much as I want to live into it. However, it's a very important part for me, and I remember it a lot, and I think I'm going to remember it more as I keep going through life. Here's another card on the table. I experience anxiety. I never got diagnosed with it, but I bet you anyone could have diagnosed me with it in like middle school, high school. And anyone could have diagnosed me with both anxiety and panic disorder at that point. I was scared of being alive. There was a time when I was genuinely scared I would become the person that can't leave their house. And if you know anything about me, which is that I've traveled to like 20 different countries in the world, and that currently I am traveling by myself in a new country, you're gonna be like you might not know that at one point, genuinely, I thought I would become someone who would be scared of leaving their house, who could be. It was a really, really close possibility. So I'm really glad I'm not there. I wasn't scared of being dead, right? But I was scared of the process of getting to that. So that's why I am alive, which is a really, maybe not happy way of putting it, but it is an important part of who I am, of where I am, is that at some point in my life, for a couple of years there, particularly middle school, sometimes high school, the fear of pain was being stronger than my fear of being alive, is what kept me alive. And it's just something that's part of my story. There's another card on the table, that I have had multiple friends who have wanted to die, and I have had friends who tried to commit suicide, luckily not successfully. I stopped like 2 of them from committing suicide, but at that point in time, I didn't even know if it was a good thing that I did, because I thought that, like, well, if I wanted to die, right, I wouldn't want anyone to stop me. So I was like, did I even make a good choice? Like, I only stopped them because people say that you're supposed to, but I don't know why you're supposed to. And I have grown from that. I do have a almost solid belief on why it's good to, stop people from committing suicide and sort of help them find their way back to being alive and feeling alive and not just wanting to, So, yeah. I truly believe now that sometimes when we have those thoughts, it's more because we want a particular part of us to die, like an old part of us. Not like, we don't want like a physical death, more like a metaphorical one. And sometimes we take it a little too literally. And it is astrology that has helped me with this belief, which I believe is a pretty beneficial one for me to maintain. Another card on the table is that some of my beliefs, I don't have a particular reason for it, besides that I feel better walking through life holding this belief than another, such as the question of free will. Does free will exist or not? There's a lot we can talk about on that topic. And at the end of the day, whatever science we put into it or not, physics, quantum physics, all of that, at the end of the day, beliefs are things you believe because you choose to. And I choose to believe that there is free will. And I choose to live my life as if there is free will, regardless of whether there is or isn't, because I feel better that way moving through life. I feel more trust in myself and in the universe and more grounded that way, so I choose that. Same thing with this other belief that I'm talking about, which is that, just with that other belief that I just mentioned. The reason I think so is just because I feel better walking around life believing so. Here's another card on the table, still kind of in the same realm, is that I was a kid in middle school that would come home and sit and watch cartoon shows on YouTube all day. Any free moment I had, I would try to avoid homework. Sometimes I would do it, but not really. Like my family, my grandparents, my mom, they would be like mad at me, for not doing my homework, for seeming like I'm not doing my homework, for seeming like all I do is sit and watch TV and cartoons. And keep in mind, this was in middle school, so I was like, 11, 12, 13 at the time, maybe even 10. But during this time, the reason I was watching so much TV was because there was something I was trying to avoid actively. And I knew it, but I didn't have anybody else I could explain it to. I wasn't being lazy. It was just that at the end of elementary school, I had already realized that something wasn't right with society, with the world, like with this society. And I had dozens of philosophical questions, so many feelings, and about how everyone just seemed to go along with what was given, and how, people actually valued grades and meaningless homework as if those things had value, and, how little people talked about trees and environment, or made friends with trees, or played, or cared about each other. And I saw adults, so many adults, that were miserable in their life. Just, you finish school, you go to work. Like, I saw it, and I was scared of becoming an adult. I didn't want to grow up because everyone looked miserable. Like, as a child, I had my spark, I had my creativity, I could feel it, and I saw it gone in adults. And the few adults that I saw throughout my life that still had that spark, that were alive, many of them were called crazy or not okay. Like, one person, there was this lady, all colorfully dressed, just dancing, like right outside the subway station on the street. She was having so much fun, so much joy flowing through her. I remember seeing her, and I remember thinking, I want to be like her when I grow up. And in that moment, my mom took my hand and was like, come on, and was trying to push me around, like, be careful, she's crazy, warning me about this woman who, from my perspective, was alive. And then same thing, there was this dance teacher who was a substitute once when I had dance classes and a dance group that I was part of. Elementary school, probably, maybe middle school at this point. We had a substitute dance teacher, and she would jump when she was happy, and she would kind of cool down when she was sad or worried about some of our acrobatics, because she was a ballet teacher and we were doing some acrobatics in our dances, and she was like, ooh, and then she was like, oh, and she would just express her emotions so lively. She was feeling all of it, and we could see it. And I really liked her, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And when I was getting dressed with the rest of my dance group, what do you think they said? Ooh, she's so weird, she's crazy, no, we don't want her to substitute again. And I was just sad, because she was another one of those people who I saw that was alive. And so, point is, I had already realized this end of elementary school through middle school. Society didn't make sense. Why, people cared about trends didn't make sense. Why would you do something just because other people are doing it? The concept made no sense to me. And brands, name brand things, yeah, I'm wearing this, it was a gift and I love it, it's a great quality, and yeah, I have Aeropostale in my pants, but let me tell you, it's because they didn't have pants without this on it, and I like these pants. But in general, brands on clothes, so you're paying for the clothes, right? But it's you're paying to be a walking advertisement for the brands, and I'm like, why? If you want me to advertise, you should pay me. I shouldn't be paying you to advertise you. So, all of that stuff, I already understood, which maybe I'm just talking about it and it's kind of yeah, well, everyone did at that age, maybe it's not that unique, or oh, you shouldn't have, you probably could have talked about it back then and nothing would have happened. And maybe, I'll just tell you, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like I could tell anybody all these things and all these thoughts and all these questions. And I also didn't see any way out, frankly, because I didn't see very many people who had gotten out of the, built cage. And so, it's not a world I want to live in, where the people who feel alive and seem alive and act alive are the ones called crazy. I'm just saying. And where the people who are miserable and sell their souls to work are the ones who are praised and celebrated. And yeah, point is, I I wanted to break the cages of everyone else. I wanted to show them, like, there's nature, and we're just sitting here in this school, and there's these bars on the windows, and we're learning about things that are meaningless, but there's this whole world out there, and there's meaningful things out there. And I couldn't understand what we were doing, and I just, that's why I was watching so much TV. Luckily, when I got older, I did learn something, which is that you can't totally break other people's cages. You kind of just, people have to break their own cages. I broke my own. A lot of it. Still breaking some. But this whole topic and theme is just something that is important to me. I really think that, like, people, like, I thought it was kind of wild. Like, I really believed that everyone was just pretending not to know. Like, just pretending to care about grades in school. Like, we all just collectively pretend, and it's just a game. And then I realized that some people aren't pretending. They actually think grades matter. They actually think that the meaningless things that were taught in school were not meaningless. I mean, some of them weren't meaningless, but some of them really, 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 really were, when there's literally so much more important stuff to be talking about in this world. Anyway, here's another card on the table. We all have important dates or anniversaries, that we think about each year when that time of year rolls around. Here are some of mine. One is February of 2021. It might be 2022, but I think it's 2021. But it was February, and I was in Denmark. So whatever year I was in Denmark. And that was when I learned Transcendental meditation. This experience was so fundamental to me, because after some of those meditations, there was one day, which was the first day in all of what I could remember, when I wasn't scared of being alive. Until this day, I didn't even know I was scared of being alive. I just thought it was the normal way of being in the world. Like, my nervous system was on, and I didn't know it off. Like, it was vibrating all the time, like the anxiety or something, like before I would leave my house, like all the thoughts, but all the things I needed to have in case of this, in case of this, in case of this, in case of that. Like, I never said any of these things out loud, and there weren't too many people to watch me to, like, pick up on it. But it was very much in my mind and in my nervous system. And so February in Denmark, when I learned Transcendental meditation, first day, I experienced what it was like not to walk around in fear for every given moment, to, like, actually feel safe being alive, existing in life. And, I didn't realize that people aren't meant to walk around in fear. People are meant to walk around feeling safe in their bodies, in their environment, in the whole being alive thing. And I guess some people really do walk around like that without ever having walked around in complete fear. But, like, damn, it's not fun when you do walk around in fear all the time, constantly afraid of so many things, and, like, you don't even know another way. So, another card on the table. February 2024, I got a tattoo. Here's my tattoo. It is my signature, and it means so much to me. It is my signature, but it's reversed. So when I look in a mirror, I can see it the correct way, like written the correct side up. And I did this because I believe that I am my own best piece of art, my own best artwork, my own best creation. And I believe that I can build who I am and my life. And my signature is that I have signed myself, that I have signed off on who I am, that I am my own choice, and that I always have a choice I can make no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. And the style of the signature is in a particular form, which is a language called Solanisty, which I made up, as kids do sometimes. But I was in high school, actually, I think. And it is the language of a world, which I have also made up, which I believe I enter when I write. Though, I think that's actually a little bit later, so we'll get back to that in a moment. Here's another card on the table. February 2025, I cut my hair. And here's the truth. I like how I look better when I have longer hair. But I like how I feel when I have short hair. Because it doesn't flop around, I don't have to put it in ponytails or braids or anything it doesn't move around everywhere and I don't have to think about it too much. So it just feels better. But I do actually think I look better when I have long hair. And I like when I look like a girl. And I hope that I still look like a girl somewhat with short hair. Even though I'm pretty sure based on the definitions that we have in society that I look more like a girl with long hair, but oh well. Here we are, because this feels better. So, yeah. Here's another date. August 2023, I believe. Yeah. I think we're gonna be, or maybe even 2022. I gotta really get these years right, but it's definitely been over a year. It's been at least 2. Maybe it'll be 3 in this coming August. So, but point is, August of 2023? No, 2022. It was 2022 because January of 2023 is when I went to my tango class in Argentina. So, August 2022. I erased myself in August of 2022. I managed to get almost brainwashed. I literally got to a point in a span of 3 days where I believed that all of the memories I had were just stories I made up. So they weren't true, and I didn't know, I thought they weren't true, and that I didn't know anything, absolutely anything about who I was or what I liked. I literally had to start over from the beginning. I had a blank canvas, and for a couple days, it's really hard not to have an identity. For a couple days, there really wasn't much I could do but sit and stare at things, because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what I liked, and I didn't know what I didn't like. It was wild. So I had to start from the beginning. And the way I got myself out of that was I actually read about brainwashing and recognized that, hey, I chose to do this program thing, but hey, it was a little close to all these brainwashing things that these articles are talking about. So maybe that's what happened? Let me tell you. Almost got into a cult-ish thing. Oops. But how did I get out of that was that I began with all the simple things. I was just trying a bunch of things, and anytime something made me feel something like happiness or like I liked it, I would take a physical representation of that and put it on my table. So like I painted a little bit and I actually felt something when I painted. And I reread one of the books that I thought I had liked once upon a time. And I liked it. I felt that I liked it. And so I took a postcard from this book and I placed it on my table. And I took the thing I painted and I placed it on my table. And I made a little table of a few little things that I still, or not still, but now knew about myself that I could hold on to. And I took a Polaroid snapshot of that picture, and I carry that Polaroid around with me to this day. Because I guess it was kind of like I had to begin again. And, you know, that experience, one of the things that I learned is how easy it is to be brainwashed. How remarkable the brain is, how malleable the brain is, which on one hand is remarkable, and on one hand it's kind of freaky. Like, movies aren't fiction, and like the content that we consume is not a joke. Like, if someone wanted to persuade us into thinking that, you know, something that doesn't feel good to us is actually what we want, they could do it and we wouldn't know. Just saying. Media, you know, like, and people putting people in a state of fear, and then the people thinking that that state is the state they want, that they need to be listening to the fear of things. Like, I'm just saying, what I experienced was like an extreme of something, but wasn't like an extreme to the extreme that is even possible that you hear about in like war books, right? But this is an experience that I have had, that I have learned, you know, and my barriers after that experience are up pretty high. Like, I'm very careful about any sort of marketing and things. So, yeah. Another card on the table. I'm a girl, I'm a female, and I have a period. And despite being grateful for it, it isn't so fun in a world where sometimes you shouldn't even mention that you have a period in some places, right? But like, my body, my cramps can hurt for like a whole week before my period, and I will not want to go anywhere. I will not want to do anything if I don't have to. And it usually follows that like the more I rest, the less pills and medicine I have to take. And like at least a few days each month, I think that school or work or anything should be canceled. Like, it should be a genuine like reason that if a girl's on her period, just pause everything, and that should be fine. And so like, I will absolutely plan travel and other things completely around my period, because I am now old enough to do planning myself, right? Which is amazing, because when I was in school, I couldn't. They just schedule everything for you. Or like, you know, your family schedules vacation and trips and other things. And like, you just have to do all that stuff, whether you're on your period or not. And it's like, no. In the future, now that I have a say in my schedule and my plan of life, the answer is no. If I'm on my period, we're not scheduling anything on that day. Or not even that day, but those couple of days that week. I'm not going to dance class. I'm not going to anywhere if I don't feel like it, because it'll be a lot worse if I go than if I don't. So, yeah. Another card on the table. Cycles and nature. I think it's wild. I have learned about this, and I think it's wild that we live under the Gregorian calendar. So, my favorite number is the number 13. And I have always had this as my favorite number, because I was like, well, everyone says it's unlucky, but no one says why, right? And I was like, well, I think it's lucky, and it's my favorite number. And I just went with it. And later, I learned that there is such a depth to that realization. Because do you know why? Do you know why people say the number 13 is unlucky in the United States? I'll tell you why. Because the colonists, you know, Columbus and whoever else was coming over to colonize the United States from the Native Americans. So The Native Americans, they lived by the 13 moon calendar, as many other, like, not just Native Americans in the US. Like, yeah. Point is, they lived by the 13 moon calendar, which is a calendar where each month has exactly 4 weeks and 28 days. And then 13 months in a year, and then there's this one day which is called Year Day, which is the day after the end of the last day of the old year and the first day of the new year. Because 13 months times 28 days doesn't give us 365, it gives us 364. So there's this one additional day. But the point is, the 13 moon calendar is based on cycles of nature, right? And every month having 28 days, doesn't that make sense? I mean, think about the reason we have a day that we call a day, we base it based on the sun. And where do we get a year from? Well, we base it based on how many days, it takes for the earth to circle around the sun. All of this is based on planets and nature cycles. So it follows then that the months would be based on the moon and have exactly 28 days each. And we can see patterns better that way and cycles better that way when each month is the same number of days. But you know what they did? They wanted the Gregorian calendar, which has 12 months. Which some months are bigger, some months are longer. None of it makes sense. None of us remember it from the top of our heads. And it disconnects us from nature. It's literally, physically disconnecting us from nature, from the cycles of nature. And specifically, female cycles, right? Because women, female moon cycles, we have 28-day around approximately cycles, right? Men only have like the hormone cycles that follow through from the sun, like day and night, right? Women, we have that one and we have the moon one, right? Which is like in a month, we cycle between having higher energy and being able to do more and having lower energy and reflective time. And, it's just different stages. Anyway, point is, the reason the number 13 is told as unlucky is because they wanted to instill the Gregorian calendar in people. So they literally just made it up out of nowhere that their religion says that the number 13 is like the devil or bad. Number one, it doesn't say that. Number two, literally this is the reason that they said it, is just because they wanted their calendar to disconnect people from nature. Because when people are connected to nature and have, follow more cycles of nature, they have more power and more control over themselves, and they are more confused when they are more disconnected from nature and follow the Gregorian calendar. Thank you for my spiel. Oops. Okay. When people stop asking questions, right, and when people stop asking why, it's easier for people to be controlled. And I truly believe that in school sometimes we are not taught to ask questions, and we're taught not question authority. We're taught to just do as we're told. But I vote for more questions, more why. And I also believe, kind of a new card, kind of a same topic card on the table, is that the books that we read, like 1984 and Animal Farm by George Orwell, they aren't just tales of warning. I think they're actually pretty close to some reality. Or phrased differently, I don't think they're far away from reality. Same thing with some shows. Have you ever seen the Truman Show movie? It's a really, really great one about, how fear can be used against you. And how, anyway. New card on the table is I believe in magic. I really, really believe in magic. And this is what the young me, little me in me wants to say, is that magic is real. in so many different ways. It's not just like waving wands and doing things, even though when we talk about waving wands and casting spells, it's much closer than we realize. Like, a pencil is a wand. When I write, I am casting a spell. I am spelling, right? It's really not that far away. But point is, I think that is magic. And I think physics is magic, because in physics and in quantum physics, like, things can pass through walls, and time can speed up and slow down, and something can be two things at once. And like, there's all these things. We tell kids like magic isn't real. It's like, what do you mean? Where do you see that it's not real? Like, anyway, I believe in magic, and it is so important to me to believe in magic. And I don't at all mean like just things appearing totally out of nowhere. But I don't know totally exactly how to explain it. I just know I can see it, I know I can feel it, and I know that if you watch me long enough or listen to me long enough as, real me, or spend some time with me, you will be able to see what I see, maybe. So, anyway, here's another card on the table, is that I do tarot sometimes. I like tarot cards and oracle cards. I think that these are pretty. And yeah, not super, super, super into it, but I like them. I like them. Another card on the table is that I believe I have the magic power to tell stories. I believe that stories are magic. I believe there's magic in stories, and I believe that stories can be medicine. I truly believe that stories can change people's perspectives and really move them. And we forget that when we stop engaging with stories, even as simple as bedtime stories. We loved them as kids. And at some point, we went to school, and stories and books and everything became homework. And it stopped being something we feel, and that's something that feels comforting to us. And so many books, modern books that are being published, are specifically trying to tell you how to do something better, like self-help books that don't actually help. And they're just written because they know that that's what's going to sell, rather than because that's what someone felt and wanted to express. And not everything. I'm not saying everything. There's exceptions to every single thing. But yeah, I believe that when I write, it is magic. And I believe that I can talk to other creatures sometimes when I write in other worlds. Particular one world in particular, one universe, like one galaxy with one of the specific planets and one of the specific islands on that specific planet is where I believe I have explored. And if you would like to know any of these places, if you know me, then maybe I can tell you what they're called. But yeah, here's another card on the table. I see images when I close my eyes. I don't know how many people do, but I do. Some of the stories that I write are stories that just appear because I close my eyes and I just see it. And that is it. I don't know what else to say. It just appears. Like full on color, images, movement, like sometimes 3D, and just, yeah. Like I just close my eyes and I just see things. So, another card on the table. My dreams at night are so amazing. I love talking about dreams. So much happens in them. I really believe that sometimes it is my unconscious and sometimes it is the astral realm, and I love interpreting dreams, and I would love to talk more about them. But I am really careful about who I share that with, because even though I would love to talk about this topic and theme for like hours on end, probably, anyone who really is in the know, I feel like they might have or like not like in the know, but like has knowledge, you know, about interpretation. I feel like if I shared my dreams publicly too much, then they would have a little bit too much info about my unconscious and ability to dream travel. So that's unfortunate, but it is a topic that I absolutely adore and am so curious about, like the depth of the dreams, like how in some of like just so much, some of my dreams can like span a week. Like I can live a whole week in a dream. I've done that before. Or I can fly, or I can do magic, or things can appear and disappear, or like I have 3 different dreams in one night. Like it's just so amazing. Another card on the table is that I am currently in Argentina and I am living by myself in a new country. And it is not easy. I got here about 2 months ago, and some days it was absolutely great. And in general, I am okay. But also, this is not easy. Like everyone else, I'm looking for a place where I belong in this world. That's what I'm searching for. People with whom I belong. Meaningful friends, connections. Some of them preferably in person. Because I am connected to a good amount of people all over the world, but I want a place where I can also feel the community physically in person somewhere. And I'm trying to build that. And yeah, I'm trying to build a life that feels good for me as I am, not for me as anyone expects me to be, or anyone wishes me to be, or, you know, anything. So, yeah. Another card on the table is that some of my biggest fears around people is 1, people rushing me, and 2, people pushing me / persuading me to do things I don't want to do / to go places I don't want to go, like forcing me to do so. I am an adult now, right? So I can say no to things and I can not agree to plans. But the thing is, I didn't have that ability when I was a kid, and there was a lot of rushing and a lot of forcing to go places that I did not feel ready to go, things I did not feel ready to do. So, you know, that has lots of anxiety, like almost like even just saying like, oh, I don't want to, as if that's not going to be heard or not going to be like accepted. And so, yeah, it's just to know, just something to know, is that sometimes I do rush myself and I force myself to go places I don't want to go to. And like, sometimes I don't feel well and I still force myself to go because I think I should be able to. And it's like, no, I'm teaching myself not to. I'm teaching myself that, like, you know, I don't know, like sometimes I'm just like scared that like if I don't say yes to some invitation that like people won't invite me again, or they're not going to like me anymore, like they're not going to want to be my friend or connection, or like if it happens a little bit too often, because like, you know, things do happen. Like maybe one day I was tired and then the next week I was on my period, and then who knows what, right? And then point is, I think like I when I have friends, like my best friends, sometimes they're busy 3 weeks in a row, even though we had scheduled something each of those 3 weeks, and I end up busy. It doesn't matter, right? Like I don't care. We're still friends. And so, yeah, I'm just telling myself that like that all I need to like have like what to do with this fear is to have the ability to say no, and then to just trust that I will find the right people for me, right? So like whoever understands and will still be my friend. Those are the people that should be my friends, and people who don't shouldn't. And I just listen to my intuition about that. Here's another card on the table, which is that I think people work too much in the whole corporate world. I don't think people were meant to work that much. And yeah, I think it's a whole hell of a lot of stress and anxiety, and I don't want part of it. I am building my life, and I'm going to build it in a way that feels good for me. And I'm going to try to make it sustainable. And I'm going to try to keep my spark alive and my creativity and my curiosity. And, for now, I have an online job and I'm grateful for it because it pays the bills, right? But I am working on all my creative projects and the things that make me alive. And that is the most important thing if I ever take a break from that for some reason because I'm tired, I'm always going to go back, because my destiny is to be alive, is to live alive. And I really hope that maybe you think yours is too. And I mean, maybe right now I live in a city because I'm figuring out life by myself, and it's pretty convenient, to live in a city where you can buy groceries, and if you really need something, there's probably someone you can call up. But maybe in the future, it'll be more nature, more I actually build a house on a piece of land, and I watch the land, and I become a guardian of the land and like the environment, and have a garden, and have food from the garden and chickens and eggs. I don't really think I'd want cows because I can't drink milk. So, but like chickens and eggs and a garden, some pets. Anyway, last card on the table, that is something that is important to me that I want, is I wish to be proud of my culture. I never felt like I had too much of a culture because my family's from Siberia, from Russia, and they moved to the United States before I was born, but only 2 years before I was born or something. When I was born, they still didn't know English, and my first language was Russian. I don't remember not knowing English. I speak English a lot better now than Russian, but my first language was Russian. And I grew up in a household with Russian culture despite going to American school, right? And living in America, in New York City of all places. So I didn't know, I didn't know that some of the things that were part of my home were Russian culture. I just thought it was, my family, because I didn't see it everywhere else. And I don't know, there's some folk tales and stories that were probably read to me as a kid. And also the fact that I visited Russia when I was a kid with my grandparents, it has made a big impact on me. That's what I was talking about before with nature. That's where I really met nature as a friend, as something beautiful, and not even just a friend, just as something so powerful. There was a moment on one of these trips where I really realized nature can kill you. It really can, but it's not going to do it for any reason it's mad at you. It's not out to get you. It just can. It just is powerful like that. And also that I just had this moment where life suddenly from society made no sense. And I think the trip to the middle of nature, nowhere and away from society and school and corporations, to have that time away from there for a little bit, during some summers, it made such a big difference in my understanding of it really doesn't have to be this way. So much of the stuff really is just made up, and we just collectively choose to believe in it, and that's fine, but some of the things are really unhealthy that we just collectively choose to believe in and perpetuate. So yeah, but point is, I want to be proud of my culture of building the saunas, and some things don't make sense, saunas and these sticks that you hit people with, but they're not they're not to hurt you, they just have branches, and they're just to get heat to go in your body, and it's really hard to explain to anyone who has never done it or hasn't heard of it before. And also soup, and herbal tea. I will drink herbal tea every single day. Let it be winter, let it be summer. Like, it is absolutely my culture and it is me. And I feel like I just want to say that I'm Russian and be proud of it, because like, it's not only bad things, and like, people in Russia that I've seen, which the town that my family is from, it's not like a big town like Moscow. It's a bit of a smaller city, and people have community there. Something that I have never once found in America, the United States. Like, community and like playgrounds, and kids can go to the playground by themselves. Like, it was safe enough. And ice cream was like real fruits. Like, it had flavors that were real fruits in it, even though it was kids' ice cream. It tasted so good. And I was like, oh my goodness, America, what? Like, it's only colored and flavored stuff. And then I went to Russia and it was like real and it tasted so good. The ice cream and the playgrounds and the ability to go to the playgrounds and all the grass and the dirt in the playgrounds. And like how every single block, literally every single block had a playground. It was like not allowed for a block or a building not to have a playground. And it was amazing. And the community, how people were friends, how my grandparents have a whole group of friends. My mom had a whole group of friends before they moved to America. And here, I don't even know the name of the person that lives, next door. Or like when I was living in an apartment in New York with my grandparents, I didn't know any of the people in the building, barely knew the names of them. And yeah, that is part of my culture. Community. I felt it, and because I felt it, I know it exists. Where like everyone's different, everyone has their own thing, and like sometimes people argue or something or clash, but like it doesn't stop you from being friends